Okay, welcome back to the TXG podcast. My name is Ian Fraser.
I'm Matt Blois.
This is episode 3.
Yes.
How did we get here?
I don't know. Only a week went by.
We last week was our first go at this podcast game. We actually really enjoyed having the guys on.
It was great. Yeah.
Having Andrew and Gareth on was great.
Yep.
So I think this week we've got three fantastic guests again.
Three fantastic guests. Yeah.
So we're going to start this podcast. We have Mr. David Woods, golf professional at the Vintage Club out in Palm Springs. And we have Mr. Martin Chuck.
That's right, the tour striker.
Tour striker himself. So he's based at the Raven Golf Club in Phoenix, Arizona. I think most people will know Martin and David from their recent success, or a lot of people will know him from their recent success with the Planemate training aid.
Yeah, I think both of them have, in fairness, had, as we get into, and we will get into on the podcast, had very long, really successful careers. But the Planemate has been sort of just the most sort of, I don't know, I've never seen something explode quite like that in a training aid space.
Certainly the most viral product I've seen in this space.
Absolutely,
in a long time. And I think, Matt, as I think about the timing, sometimes these things are the success is based not just on the quality of the product, and this is a phenomenal product.
And it is a good product, yeah.
But the timing of the release of the product based on all the things that people are working on in their own golf swings, whether it be shallow in the swing, whether it be trying to kind of, flight the ball and get into a certain, impact, position, rotation, get out of, standing up in air, like standing, things like that. This literally takes care of all of that.
It really does. I think it's the most realistic thing I've seen for someone to really on their own. I mean, obviously, I'm not discounting lessons as a route to improving, but a lot of people don't take lessons. They really don't.
Yeah.
And it's probably the most realistic way I've seen for someone to improve that many swing faults with one package, basically. Yeah.
During the podcast, obviously, we're going to get caught up in the Planemate. We're going to be discussing the success of that and the benefits. And I think a lot of people will be listening to hear that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but I want to touch upon, the sort of previous careers of the guys prior to Planemate.
Absolutely.
This might be the viral moment for them, and I think a lot of people who are familiar with things like Revolution Golf might know Martin
for sure,
but maybe not in a viral context. Maybe know David's backstory. So, which is a really cool one. David is a golf swing aficionado. He was swing coach to Mike Weir for several years. Okay. And then obviously moved down to the Vintage Club in Palm Springs. What a facility that is. I
mean, that's some of my favorites. Sort of like living vicariously through David's Instagram. That place looks just amazing.
When you see the people who visit that place throughout the winter, and obviously Jason Day's out there, Camilo Villegas, Matt Kuchar we saw there. I mean, in the kind of obviously the early days of Planemate before it was really released. Yeah. Having followed David online, it was you could see all these people testing this product, and it just, what a facility.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah, it's really cool to sort of know that. Well, I mean, you probably should know this about most products, that it didn't just happen, in a week, and here's the prototype. It's been developed, with tour players, with regular players for years. Really, it's been years.
Well, the backstory to that is going to be really cool.
It will be cool. Yeah.
And obviously, as you say, Mr. Tour Striker Martin Chuck, a genius mind when it comes to developing training products.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the Smart Ball, I think, it was no slouch either. I mean, Rory used that, Justin Rose used that. I mean, I've got one, you've got one. That was, and it still is a very good training product.
Well, I love seeing people who are hooked up to Planemate with the Smart Ball.
Martin's Instagram is hilarious. Like, I've seen, I think someone did it as a joke, but had probably 10 training aids on instead of a video. It was hilarious.
But, just that mindset of obviously creating training products that will help people expedite that improvement process.
It's a rare talent to be able to apply it to something like that, right? I mean, it's and it's obviously it's good, and people need something to take home and practice and get the feedback, and it's been great for that.
Yeah, I mean, even from a technology standpoint, I mean, he's had gears for as long as anyone I've known to have gears. Yeah, in his studio there, and he is very much on the cutting edge of all things technology, and obviously when it comes to the developing the training aids, I mean, I can't wait to see what's going to spawn off of.
Can you imagine?
The Planemate and all these other ones. So, the boys are doing some great work.
Absolutely.
So, this is going to be cool. What are you excited to kind of hear from them?
I mean, I think I'm no different than anyone else. I love to hear the tour player stuff. Yeah. Personally, I really do. Yeah. I don't know. It's just something cool about a tour player using a training aid that you can buy and use yourself, and it just shows that it's that validated. So I'm curious to kind of hear some of the early day stuff, maybe about like who's tested it, because I've seen his Instagram posts, David specifically, with sort of the early days, but I don't know about everyone that's tried it, and I'd love to hear the reaction to Rory putting it on.
That was
I was in shock, and it wasn't not my product. I was excited for them. So for me, I think the tour player side is I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, I think outside of seeing Tiger Woods strap that thing on, I think Rory would be the guy that would create the most sort of most kind of momentum buzz for the boys.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
With that,
he's got to be the second most popular golfer at this time. Rory.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so on a sort of global scale. He's a pretty popular guy.
He's a pretty popular guy.
Yeah, especially the way he's playing right now.
Hard to beat.
Okay, well let's get the boys on the call.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we have this week's guests with us. We have Mr. Martin Chuck and Mr. David Woods. Boys, thanks for joining us.
Well, hey, great to be on.
Well, this is the beauty of podcasts, because we were kind of chit-chatting amongst ourselves, and we were really hoping to catch up with you guys at the show, and obviously we all gathered together in Orlando, but this makes life so much easier in the podcast world that we can have one person in Phoenix, one out in the desert, and we're here in
the tundra
north, and we can all get together. It's brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's good to be on, boys, and I think it's just very cool these days. So you can get like-minded people loving golf all together on the phone, having some fun talking about it. So let's get to it.
Absolutely, definitely. So, boys, I'd love to just for people who haven't heard your story. I mean, I think most people who follow us will be in the same sort of circles as following yourself. So maybe Martin, let's start with you. Why don't we go into the origin story a little bit? How did you get to where you are? And then David will do the same.
Yeah, Dave and I have been buds for 20 years, a little longer actually. And we worked together at Indian Ridge Country Club a long, long time ago. He was an assistant pro for me, and he was great. And he's become an amazing pro, one of the best in the country. So it's been fun to watch his evolution as a club professional, and more than that, just a family guy with a couple of great kids and an awesome wife, to see, what he's kind of done so far in life. And I think he's just kind of getting started. And we've always been swing nerds. We've always kind of, like most guys in the business, really enjoyed it. And I branched away from the club business into developing products, as most of you guys know, and then Revolution Golf, that online platform where a lot of people got to know me online, which was a lot of fun for me. But kind of speeding through this, one of the tips I did about 3 years ago now, looked it up. I used some surgical tubing to kind of influence how the club felt as a player was using it. And I would do it with students where I would tug on it certain ways while they were holding the club and feeling the band pull. And then so doing a video on my own, I attached it to my belt, and I would do that you could get a certain feel from that. And then, a couple days later, 2 interesting calls. One from David. David's like, "Hey man, that's that's cool. What if," and he loves doing that to me. "What if," and then, it was attached to a rail, and it provided more freedom of motion in a through swing. And so that was a cool call. And then I had an interesting direct message from Darren Clark, who I'd never met before, out of the blue. Like, who's to think that he watches videos, like online videos? But he goes, "Hey man, I did that. I liked it. It was great. I just letting you know, I enjoyed that video you made." I'm like, "Cool." So then Woodsy calls me. He's like, "Hey, what about this rail thing?" So I'm in my office, and we're talking about it. And I still remember the day and where I was sitting on, where my eyes went when he said rail, because I had an old swing jacket, one of those Jim Hardy swing jackets. And I don't know if the listeners remember those. It was kind of almost like a Kevlar vest with 2 rails on it. Well, I took one of the rails off and took it to a shoemaker and had him kind of, bolted onto an old brown leather belt that I had. And that was like the first prototype. I sent it off to Dave, and Dave tested it out with a variety of people, some of the best in the world, down to like newbies, So Dave, take it from there, bud.
Yeah, no, it just taking just a quick step back. Yeah, like Martin said, I've known him for 20 years and had a great opportunity to work for him at Indian Ridge. And people don't realize that before Martin Chuck was Martin Chuck Tour Striker, he was a Jedi club pro that I learned a ton from. And I just think we think the same way. And that kind of helped when we got going on this whole thing. But, to Martin's point, when we kind of put all these things together, kind of pieced them together. And originally, the whole concept was like, how can we get the club to have the center of mass kind of drop behind the hands and feel that with a tug on that workout, stretchy cord, right? And then the cool thing, just by testing it with so many people, we just realized that that's just one of the 10 or 12 attributes to the Planemate that kind of go together. And for the average player out there, I'd say the shallowing is the attraction. That's the shiny object that people are attracted to. But it just does so many more things than that. It's amazing in the takeaway of just feeling where the club's supposed to be in that first move away from the ball. It's incredible for adding width and extension to your swing. Martin and I have done extensive testing just as a tool for fitness and just stretching and strengthening. And there's just so many things. And I think, once we got it in the hands, I think we're up to Martin, over 40 PGA Tour players that are using the Planemate. And I'd say 90% of the feedback from these guys and gals is that they like it for the exit. Because, if you play on the PGA Tour, you're probably okay with your slightly steep downswing, or you shallow it already, right? So, where they really are excited about it is with the exit. In fact, like I just got off the phone with Camilo Villegas this morning, and he's getting ready to make his comeback. And he's been he was injured, and now he's feeling good.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a name I've not heard for a while.
Yeah, he's and there's a guy like you talk about steep to shallow. Not only is he a great guy, but like you talk about steep to shallow. That guy's got a back that standing that shaft up and shallows it better than most. So he's like, like for the shallow, it doesn't really do anything for me because I'm already there. But boy, do I love, how it exits. And he, he spends time with Rory and Luke Donald. And, they're all pals back there at Bears Club. And to hear, all these tour players just talk about how it motivates them and engages them to have better finishing form with exit rotation. And just, it just shows you the best players in the world. They can get a little hip stolly and a little hand rotation. And so I think that's, been the unforeseen benefit, Martin, you might add to that of just how controlled it is through the hitting zone and into the exit.
No, for sure. I mean, it gives you, well, just today, I just got off the lesson tee and I had most of my lessons, my stock lesson is a middle-aged guy, middle-aged to like 80-year-old dude who comes through Phoenix on some kind of a business trip or golf school vacation or whatever. And today's guy, it was a guy from Aberdeen, Scotland, actually. And so this guy was, he was the prototypical whip it inside, flat shoulder turn, steepen it on the way down, right? So the students need this they need to be kind of confused almost, like shocked a bit, and put into this to where their body goes, what's going on here? I don't know what I'm doing. This is really weird with these bands pulling on me, right? Because when you get the person out of their comfort zone, now there's an opportunity for them to learn something. And, that's why David and I, we took a lot of care in building these little protocols, like the original 7. Okay, this is how you get started. This is like step 1. And people say, well, man, if you're building, showing people exactly how to do it, that's not going to help them. Like, well, they gotta have some guideline, right? Because the thing adds so much, like it's a great way to kind of open up the mind a bit, to kind of connect back to the body. So they need some guidance before they can kind of go on their own. So, David talks about all the good players kind of know what to do in the backswing. They kind of know what P2, P3, P4 should look like and feel like, but then they might get a little bit too much right side bend, too much, hip slide, and then, exit the shaft out to right field for the right-handed golfer too much. And then there's your two-way miss, right? Or most of the good players are looking for that sense of not letting the club shoot inside out, not letting it overdraw too much or blocky, hooky type pattern. So the good players like the exit feels of rotation and more passive hands. That the guy today, all I was teaching him to do from Scotland, it was to kind of stand it up like an umbrella on the way back and learn how to shallow it on the way down. And then he had some pretty good pictures and he had some feels and he had this band tugging on him. And he goes, well, I can feel that. And he was such a bear, this guy, that the green band wasn't even strong enough for him. I got to put him in the red band, like the fitness one. Oh yeah, no. I mean, the guy could tear.
That's hard.
He could tear.
Listen, Martin, they make them differently in Aberdeen. Those fishermen up there, those are some burly fishermen up there.
This dude's forearms were seriously like my legs. So he was a guy. He needed the red band right away, which is the first I've ever seen. I've seen people use the red band successfully. I stretch with it. Like, and Woodsy mentioned Luke Donald. So Luke Donald's in the gym, right at the Bears Club, like just making swings, checking out his action in the gym. I haven't seen Luke hit balls with it yet. I've seen him post plenty of him stretching with it and working through his form, but I haven't seen him hit a ball yet. And he loves it. Right. He posts on his Instagram. I don't know. Maybe Woodsy.
Yeah, we've seen him hit with it.
I haven't seen him hit yet.
I haven't seen him hit a ball with it. I've talked to him just over just back and forth on DM, and he just says he loves the feels and the stretches and in the gym. And I should have asked Camilla if he's seen him hit any with it, but I haven't asked him. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of guys. In fact, I was talking to Pierce and Andy day before yesterday. I was talking to Pierce, and he had been talking to Rory, and we know Rory's using it, fairly frequently with his wedge game, but he also mentioned to Pierce that he uses it a lot in the gym as well and in his house just to get those stretches and get warmed up and try to create those feels.
I mean, I don't think there's been a product. Boys, correct me if I'm wrong. You guys are in the teaching space. I cannot think of a product that's hit that space. I mean, and maybe there's a little bit of the sort of, we're in the digital era, the social media impact and things like that, but there's just nothing I've ever seen that's like this.
No.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a.
I just haven't.
It's been a bit of a perfect storm. There's no question about it. But I think it's a lot of things. I think it's. I think we've done a good job marketing the product. But I don't care how good your marketing is. If the product doesn't stand on its own, good luck.
But Woodsy, let me jump in on that for a sec. So marketing the product, like honestly, guys. We've spent so little marketing the product.
I can imagine.
I've been, I come from the old school actually. Like the first product was the Tour Striker Training Club. Go back 10 years ago, where it was an infomercial. We would be spending so much money to market something. Now we don't even do that. Like pros order them. We don't even know they've ordered them. Tells my operations manager says, "Hey, I think this guy plays in the PGA Tour." And I'm like, yep, he sure does. And we put it in a box, and next thing you know, the guy's paid for it and he's using it. And then they're posting stuff, right? And so there's this crazy viral marketing thing that it's not the marketing that we used to do. It's like people like it, they share that they like it, which is amazing.
And that's the ideal situation, really.
Yeah. Well, you guys know our Canadian market up here, and you'll be familiar with Score Golf magazine, and they're the kind of main magazine that kind of goes out in print to all the golf clubs in Canada. And when I first moved here, we launched a company in 2012, and we spent $25,000 to get a center page spread, 2 pages with Score Golf. So we monitored the return on that, and we figured we got about 8 people who turned up at our store because of that. And now looking at the way we market now with what Matt and I have tried to do with the YouTube channel, with what we do, things like just our social media presence. So it's just such a different way of doing it. I mean, people know how YouTube works. We're almost created a revenue stream from our marketing strategy. So it's incredible how the world has changed, and it's just allowed us to get the good information out there. And I think you guys have done an incredible job with that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Organic versus paid marketing is that's the way the world is going. When you get
Rory McIlroy posting wedge shots of him, and everyone knows Rory's weakness, and if he ever gets that, when he gets that wedge game dialed in, I mean, look out.
I think I almost dropped my phone when I saw it. I was so happy for you guys. I thought, holy.
I think we were together at that point.
I think
we were in here on a Monday or something. And we saw it, and we were like, wow.
Well, having used it, I think we both already had an appreciation for, this is legit. This is no joke. Yeah. I've used plenty of training aids, so we were already kind of on board with it. And then to see that, I mean, I know other tour players had used it, but Rory's, he's been top 4 for the last couple of years. He's the guy pretty much, aside from, unless Tiger straps him on, I don't know who else is going to move the needle better than him.
Sure, for sure. Funny little story. Rory had DM'd me interested in the Planemate, and then we just got talking back and forth over text, and it was probably, between the last time that I'd spoke to him and the time that his Planemate arrived to him was probably, I don't know, maybe a week or two. And I was about to start caddying for my 10-year-old daughter in a golf tournament. I'm standing up on the tee, I've got her push cart there ready to go, and I get a text, and it didn't have any words. It was just a text from Rory with a swing of his. And
wow.
I'm looking at this thing and I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe that he's wearing it. And I can't believe that he sent me a text, with the swing on there. My daughter's like, Dad, I'm up. Like, sorry, honey, just hang tight here. I got Rory McIlroy on the line. But no,
awesome.
It's that was exciting to see, one of the, in my opinion, certainly one of the top, my top favorite swings on tour, and everybody loves Rory. And if I can just say about Rory McIlroy as a person, like, oh my God, this guy is the coolest guy I've ever talked to in that space. I mean, he's just so, like, that was really kind of him to do that, post that. He doesn't need to do that, but just shows the class level of Rory.
He's on a different level when it comes to that. Talk about people who are grounded. I mean, we were doing an event out at Sabonica about, I think it was, it was about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. He just made the switch to Nike. So he was getting ready for the playoffs out at Sabonica at Liberty National. And he was practicing there for a few days. And there was a couple of young kids on the range just hitting some balls. And Rory walks over to the kids' parents and says, do you mind if I take the kids and go and play a few holes? So they're like, no, go for it, crack on. So Rory grabs these two little kind of 7-8-year-old kids, jumps in a cart, and they go and play a little 3-hole match. And we're still in the range fitting, and they come back around and they've got hats and signed gloves and stuff from him. And it was purely spontaneous on his part. Like, that was purely his idea. It wasn't the parents going bothering him for this to happen. It was his idea to go and take them, because he was going to go and play a few holes anyway. And he knew how much of an impact that would make. And
it's a great story.
He's a special dude. He really is.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. Like, you hear a lot about his character. Is pretty widely accepted to be one of the good guys, isn't he?
He absolutely is.
Yeah.
So, guys, we have a few questions. We want to just pull a few from. We kind of posted an Instagram poll earlier for some questions. So Matthew's got a couple.
So I've got a really good one here. I think this question actually relates to what you were talking about with Johnny when he was out seeing you guys. Is a lot of people may not have a place they can hit balls like every week. They have a Planemate. Maybe they just kind of have time to use it in the gym, as you mentioned, or in the basement.
Sure.
And maybe they're only hitting balls once in a while. What would you say is kind of the best protocols to use to get the most out of that time if it's not strictly hitting balls?
Dave, you want to take it? Okay, I'll take it. So, I mean, I'm a huge, if I had my, I guess I do, and I've got one in my house and I've got one in my studio, and a day won't go by, or if a day goes by, I'm disappointed that I don't put it on, and I don't put the red band on or the green band, and just get a nice high and wide stretch, so I manage, when I take it back for the listeners, we golf coach nerds, we refer to the swing kind of as it passes through certain positions, and the address positions P1, halfway back, club for first parallel P2. So as a club kind of wanders back to P2, we're looking to make sure that we still have a bit of stretch on the band, and it's kind of the top of the takeaway, so to speak. And then as we work it up into P3, lead arm parallel, we're still have stretch, and we're getting that club stood up vertically, and because most people whip it inside by that point, and they can't really shallow from there. So when they're resisting all the way up past P3, now the band's got a lot of tension on it, and they can just kind of stay up there for a moment and let the weight of the club kind of bend, relax the band back, and then they can rotate a bit. So, that's a good feel, and just feels from address onto a finish, so that they don't, let the club overtake. So I always tell people, practice swings are okay, but get some stretch on the band, and if they can smack a couple wiffle balls around their house, that'd be great.
I think I remember using it when I first got it before I had a chance to go hit balls. And I remember just the takeaway, like just doing, 15, 20 rehearsals with the takeaway and feeling stretch on the band, and then take the thing off.
Yeah,
sure.
I thought to myself, like, I've never spent 5 minutes doing something and actually felt the difference in my life.
Right.
Like you actually find your arms just sort of going there.
Yeah, they travel into that position, don't they? We were calling it the ghost arms.
Yeah, we were nicknaming it the ghost arms, and we made a bunch of jokes about it.
It's kind of, you kind of initiate the takeaway, and all of a sudden you kind of gain the width that the band was kind of helping you create, and it's right there with you.
And it's I think in terms of time investment to actually get that sensation, it's literally a matter of minutes. If you want,
so efficient.
you talk about people wanting, instant gratification with the training aid. I know there's more to it, but I found that if someone just worked on their takeaway in the winter, it's got to have some big dividends.
Another thought too for guys, even when they don't have the Planemate on, just as it relates to guys that get steep in transition, I think just naturally, when people are fighting to try to have that look, let's say in a mirror on video of that shaft being more shallow on the way down, I think they kind of put the cart before the horse, right? Unconsciously, like Martin said, they kind of, in the takeaway, they whip the club head in behind the grip and they try to make it look laid off or flat in the backswing, thinking that they're trying to get there so quickly that they're doing it in the backswing instead of the downswing. And I think just what the Planemate creates is that feeling of the handle more in, the club head more out, and standing that shaft up like the umbrella. And now you actually have somewhere to go where the club can lay down, because if you try to lay it down from when it's already flat and feeling parallel to the ground, I mean, you're just going to tug the handle steep and steep and coming down. So
yeah, and I think that's brilliant advice, David, because I think the one thing that's such a challenge and you guys must find this on the lesson tee, is you can teach someone the positions fairly easily. Trying to get them to do it in a sequence that they can retain and then something that can be the foundation of their swing. I mean, that's the one thing I notice with it. The sequencing that you can achieve with using it is so much better than if you practice positions, single one-off positions.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Because it's reactionary, I guess. It's like you're forced to. You really can't, I don't know, you guys can probably verbalize it better, but you really can't not rotate through or the band's going to be awfully tangled. And I noticed that right away. I'm a person that stalls like crazy. And I admit I've been using it for quite a while. I haven't as much recently just because I've got a couple stupid hockey injuries that Ian makes fun of me for. But when I was using it, I don't think I was able to hit anything more than kind of a soft wedge shot without getting tangled. Any full swings, I actually still get tangled, which shows me, the amount of rotation that you need to keep that band away from you. It's a lot more than you think initially.
Yeah. And, hitting shots at 50% speed at full length will help you, get away from that feeling with, if you're taking full swing 7-irons, just try to hit them at full swing length, but half speed, and you'll be able to kind of feel where you are in space.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a lot of people are guilty of that. Probably just kind of doing a few chip shots and then going, okay, I'm ready to whale away at 100%. And
no kidding.
It's I can see how that
people
gets difficult.
Rush it, don't they?
I think about this too, fellas. Just to jump in, I mean, when you watch like Tommy Fleetwood and McIlroy and these guys hitting these lasers in, they're not flailing the finish. The club's not bouncing off their back. You know what I mean? It's a high speed, controlled, precise strike, right? So the finish isn't some kind of flailing event. So, with the Planemate, you're making this motion, you're collecting the ball, rotating to a finish, and you have some structure, and there's the band's visual there, being in the right place kind of paints the picture of how Fleetwood and how McIlroy looks when they are hitting those, 4/5, 3/4 piercing iron shots, not just the flailed, who knows where it's going to go, 8-iron from whatever distance, right? So, I mean, it's
a much more controlled motion.
Yeah, and so many club players and pros, that's how pros play. So, club players certainly need that.
Well, I'll say that when I was being a little more disciplined and actually trying to be, let's say 60, 70%, I actually found that distance-wise, I was getting pretty close.
Yeah.
Like I'm spoiled, obviously. I can come and hit balls here on the quad at Ian's place. But when you think about what a full 8-iron is, I was probably only down, 10, 15% on yardage. And you still spin the ball normally. You still launch it normally. Mm-hmm. It's just a little bit less. But the perception of how hard you think you need to swing, I think that's probably the biggest, I guess, damager to sequencing is kind of jamming at it with your hands and your arms.
Sure.
For sure.
We've got one more, actually probably one of the most requested. We got probably about 10 people that asked this with relation to the Planemate. Talking about early extension, that's got to be, it's obviously a bit of a buzzword when it comes to golf, but we've got a number of people saying, just from our Instagram poll here saying, what is Planemate specifically doing for that issue, that early extension issue that you see so often?
Yeah. So to me, the early extension, the way that you're going to avoid early extension with the Planemate, obviously, if you're sliding in your downswing, if your initial move from the top down is to have a little, slide toward the target, and you're adding speed, first of all, you're that band's going to tangle up underneath the handle. So purely on the fact that if you're just thinking about keeping the band trailing the grip, that should push you into rotation rather than into, moving towards the ball like you would in an early extension feeling. Martin, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. I think that lateral slide kind of gets you, going like the goat.
Well, and so when the handle, if a golfer pulls the handle down, right, we change the pitch of the Ferris wheel, so to speak, and we get it to where it's going to hit the ground. An extension move is trying to fit something in. It's trying to fit in a shallow. It's trying to get away from the ground. So the club gets behind you more, right? So if we stand it up and then we have the opportunity to feel what up is, and we can understand where the band's sort of encouraging the club to go. Now the club gets on a flatter pitch sooner. So if it's pitching out flatter sooner, that inspires rotation. Because if you don't rotate, you'll probably stick it in the ground well behind the ball. So it's all kind of it's an interesting sequence that, the best players will stand it up a bit, let it shallow a bit. Not to say there isn't the odd in and over guy. There is. Ricky Fowler's got some in and over. But there's a lot more guys that kind of stand it up, let the club lay down. When it lays down, now you're more inspired to rotate. And so if you're more inspired to rotate, you're less inspired to stand up. So, a lot of those golfers that come see me, like the guy from Aberdeen today, we're trying to give him the umbrella feel, like very vertical, to where he could stretch it and then feel it relax behind him, so that his brain told him to turn, right? Because if you come down handle first and have an umbrella on the way down, the only thing you can really do is to stand up, make room for the thing, right?
That's a great point.
Yeah,
it's a great point.
And that's when it really works. Yeah,
it's happening automatically, isn't it?
That's when it makes the most sense. It's not a learned practice. It's just reactionary.
You're not just doing it for the sake of how it looks in the mirror. You're actually, you're sort of, you're owning it, right? Like you can't not do it. You're physically, your body is forced to do it as a byproduct. I think that's a great answer, guys. I think most people, when they look at training aids, they go, okay, well, if I buy this, am I physically capable of actually getting the benefit? And so why I think this is good is because it's almost like you follow the protocols, you kind of sort of, there's no way you can't get in these sort of better positions. There's no way you can't feel the effects of rotating more, as long as you're following just, the basic sort of foundations of it. It's just going to happen as part of the deal.
Right. And the guys that might struggle a little bit with it are the guys who, the first question I ask them, if someone sends me a message, which is rare, where they say, "Oh, I'm struggling. I can't seem to use the Planemate." The first thing I ask them is, "Have you watched the protocols?" And every time the answer is no. Right?
Is that right? Well, yeah.
I said,
I'm not surprised.
And they're like, "Can I send you a swing?" I said, "After you watch the protocols." Because I'm just not just gonna try to have them start from scratch. Like, watch the protocols through, try to work at it, and if you're still struggling, shoot me a swing, which I never hear back because they obviously figure it out.
It's kind of like, did you try to assemble your IKEA furniture by yourself?
Right.
Looking at the instructions. Good luck. You need to start with the right stuff.
Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Boys, I just want to pivot a little bit right now, just into a little bit into our world, into the club fitting territory. And Martin, obviously, I saw recently that you guys just had a fantastic new edition of the True Spec shipping container added to the Raven Club. How's that been so far?
It's been great. What I love is the Phoenix weather is usually pretty spot on. Mind you, it's been a little sketchy the last couple of days. But we built a snowman on the back of the range the other day. A hail.
I saw on your Instagram.
Hysterical, crazy 15 minutes of hail. But anyway, no, it's so nice because guys can hit on the track, man. They can try all the shafts. I mean, it's a quality build like what you guys do. And so people can look at it, love it, watch it fly. And then, True Spec does a nice job putting it all together. And so I'm a huge believer in get the right feeling grip in your hands, get a great feeling shaft. What club do you love to look at? It might not be brand XYZ. You might have some crazy off brand that you can only get in Asia or something or wherever. And you guys do that, and they do it down here. So I love it.
Yeah. They definitely do. We're good friends with the boys down there, and I love the shipping container look as well. I think that to the facility, it must add so much to the range, and you've got what you do with your groups and your lessons, and what they do with their fitting setup there. It's fantastic.
No, it's a must do. And it's so close to the airport. So whoever's passing through Phoenix, it's like, hey, if you got a few hours, book a fitting, come over, hit some balls, and treat yourself to a well-fitted, awesome golf club. And
David, you're TaylorMade staffer?
I am, yes.
Very cool. Matt and I are heading down to see the new stuff next week. We're heading out to the Kingdom to get a look at the new range.
Have you seen it already, David? You must have seen the drivers, no?
Yeah, we were over. I'm one of the 10 members of the TaylorMade board of club professionals in the country. So Along with that comes the niceties of being able to test that stuff real early. So yeah, I was over there with the rest of our team probably maybe 3 weeks ago, and they fit us for the new driver, and it is fantastic. Fantastic.
Good to hear. Yeah,
I heard some really good things already.
We're really excited to see it.
Yeah, no, it's. I think the golf world is going to be very pleased with the new driver for sure, and the fairways are awesome too. In fact, their whole lineup. I mean, they're killing it with the Spider putter, and then they've got their new irons that are coming out. So
there's a lot of new stuff, isn't there?
A lot of good stuff. Yeah, they've got from soup to nuts. They've got everything new this year. So it's exciting.
Well, boys, we really appreciate the time. I think we're excited to kind of see the next wave of Planemates being shipped out, and next kind of wave of Instagram kind of messages coming out to you guys of, people just literally seeing, game-changing results. I think that was quite amazing to see some of the kind of stories of people lowering scores by 5, 6, 7 shots and beating their personal best after just having it for a few weeks. So, early in the new year, very much expecting to see the same thing.
Yep, and actually looking forward to doing a little bit more ourselves, I think, with it. We'll have some testing to do probably early in 2020 for sure.
That's great. Well, we appreciate the support, fellas.
Yeah.
No worries.
You got it. All right, boys. We'll take care and we'll see you in Orlando.
You got it. Sounds good. Cheers.
Thanks again. Right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So that was quite a bit of more depth to sort of the inception of how it was made. But not only that, just it was really interesting to hear what occurred at all those points when the big names started using it. That Rory story was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think that was more depth than we even could have hoped for, to be honest. Even just hearing, Martin, how he conceptualizes these things with the idea and then bouncing the ideas. Ideas are great, but ideas coming from one person are nothing compared to the ideas that can be spawned when you bring great minds together.
That's a good point.
And you start to bounce different ideas off different people, and they obviously have that chemistry. You can hear that between them, that they have such a friendship and a respect.
I didn't know.
For
I
one
think
another.
That's great. Yeah. I wasn't sure how they. I think the story, that I didn't realize they'd worked together for so long. So that I think that's no doubt that's a factor in how successful it's been.
And not only because you want to acknowledge a great idea, but to then challenge it to maybe add something to that.
That takes a lot of.
Yeah, it does.
What's the word for that? It takes a lot of. You have to be very humble, I think. But you also have to just have the pure desire for it to become the best version of itself. Above any ego or anything like that. I mean, to send it to his friend and obviously someone he respects and says, like, help me with this, let's make it the best thing it can be.
They have genuine mutual respect for one another, don't they? And I didn't know the story about David working for Martin.
I didn't know that either.
I had no idea Martin was in the kind of the club pro game and that sort of thing. I thought he'd went down the line of being maybe a director of instruction, a bit more like Andrew Rice last week, and I thought he'd went down that route. So I love gaining the depth of this origin story with these guys.
And I think for those two, I think probably a lot of their personalities and the way they teach, I bet you was molded by being the club pro side. Because that's sort of that rounded. I mean, you worked at a club yourself as part before you got into club fitting. As I did, and a lot of people we've interacted with. It just makes you understand golf as a whole more. It also helps you understand like the average player. So for those two to develop a training aid that is mostly, obviously tour players are using it, but most people are average players that they're using.
Well, and I think some of the stories about guys like Camilo who have a lot of elements of what the Planemate provides. With this sort of, the standing up of the shaft in the backswing, creating the width and stretch into the rotation and letting the club shallow naturally and things like that. That's great, but I enjoyed the story more about the guy from Aberdeen who came and he had the complete opposite pattern. Yeah. You know that these players are going to have elite movement patterns and they're going to do something very similar to what they're trying to achieve with the Planemate, but they might be trying to refine it.
Yep.
Here, you've got by the sounds of it, a big bruising character all the way from Aberdeen.
I'll have to see a photo of that guy. He's probably the best.
Probably faces weather beaten and red as can be, and he's found his way to Phoenix. And
hilarious.
His pattern sounded like he was whipping it on the inside and rerouting the club over the top, and that's the player we fit all the time.
100%.
Trying to give someone the opposite feels, so you can just see how valuable that's going to be on the lesson tee.
I think that's the the underrated feature, the backswing. And that's what the guy said, the same thing. That feeling it gives you in the takeaway, especially when you take it off and your arms just kind of go there.
I know.
Like for that guy, especially with his giant forearms.
You have to tell the ghost story. You have the ghost arm story.
So, did I come up with it?
You came up with it. Oh, you came in singing it.
That's right. So I ordered a Planemate for myself.
Yep.
Before.
Oh, you were early.
I ordered it and maybe pre-ordered one or two.
Right.
Let's say. I know we had talked about it, but I said, I'm just gonna get one because I want to do it if we use it on.
And we hadn't really committed to launching or to testing products on the channel.
We hadn't even talked about it.
No, we've never really done any training aids, have we?
Never.
No.
It was not for the channel. I'll be perfectly honest. For myself.
It was
for me, right?
But you obviously, that you knew the impact it could make. Yes. By showing people the value of it.
100%.
And, because everyone, I'll say it for you, but everyone will watch our videos on a weekly basis in admiration of the way you swing it and the way you've developed your swing. But, I think they could also see the benefits of you using such a product, especially the week that we done the part where you were working your exit.
Oh, for sure.
That was very different.
It was night and day different. Yeah. So I think, the motivation was, I'll admit, is mostly selfish. I just wanted to improve my swing. I know I exit kind of out, and I know I actually was steepening in the backswing. It's better now, but I was that guy. Yeah. So ordered it. I don't remember when it took a while, obviously, because I was on a pre-order, so I was psyched when it finally shipped. Yeah. Got it, and I'll be perfectly honest, I didn't take it outside for a while. It's a little bit kind of embarrassed to go.
You were a little bit embarrassed about that.
No one had it. I'm thinking like, am I going to look like a bit of a dummy out in the range? So I did, and I actually, the guys' protocols make it pretty clear. You can do most of it inside, which is a foam ball. It's mostly half swing. So I did all that. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first session I used it for, I just had like chipping into a little net with like a foam ball in my basement. And I've probably hit, I don't know, couldn't be more than 25 shots. And I took it off. I was just curious, like, how would it feel? And my hands and the club, well, mostly the club head, just literally start moving away from address. So I put my hands down, I sold the club, and the club just starts floating away. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is bizarre. So that was my first experience from it. Then I'm sure I came in on a Monday after
and you were telling me about how this phenomenon occurs with your arms start having a mind of their own.
And I'm having a hard time verbalizing it because it's a little bit strange thing to say without any context. So you're looking at me like, what is wrong? Like, what are you talking about? So I said, I don't know. God knows why this came into my head, but I'm thinking of the scene from Ghost.
The movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze with the pottery wheel, and I'm like, it's kind of like somebody moving your hands for you, moving the club head for you. And then I said something about the song that's in that scene, and I'm whistling
from the Righteous
Brothers, and then we've got YouTube going. The Righteous Brothers are on, and that's a shame. That's pre TXG behind the scenes.
I know.
If we had Brandon at the time,
one hell of an outtake.
Great outtake. But that's where the ghost hands came from. I didn't have the stomach to tell the boys that story. Maybe later when we see them.
We'll save that one for a pint in Orlando.
Yeah, I think if they've had a beer, they might find it funnier than me telling them over the phone.
No, that was cool, and we've been fortunate to interact with the guys a little bit since doing those videos, and the success that the training aid has had has not changed how kind of grateful and humble they are for everyone who supports the product,
to the point of almost being like surprised. So I think we did the video because we thought it was a really interesting training aid. I'm glad that that was helpful for them in terms of getting attention. But when I look at who's tried it, Rory strapping it on, we could make 100 videos. No one cares even 1% as much as Rory puts it on once, and like that. So I think the accolades of it have been so high, beyond us, that for them to still say, we're happy you guys made a video. I was almost like, well, that's nice of you to say, because you don't need us, obviously, right?
Yeah, and I think the early stages of it, I was getting a lot of messages with people saying that, you guys must be endorsing this and getting a kickback. In the age of influencers and things like that, with with the YouTube audience that we have, I think a lot of people thought that we were being somewhat subsidized for promoting the product and things like that, which is absolutely not the case.
I bought it.
You literally.
If you want to see my Visa statement, I bought it. Yeah.
And every tour player who buys it does the same thing.
The same thing. Because and I love hearing that. First of all, like,
absolutely.
I like hearing people that yes, I get it. You're a tour player, but it's still a business, and the guys are running out every time they run out. So no one's asking for one for free.
That's right.
There isn't even a free one to give. If you want it. So I'm sure. There was a couple sneaky ones. I don't remember who it ended up being. Remember they posted like an order and it was from a tour player.
Yep.
I don't know who it was, but it was like a top 10 player. Yep. This wasn't Rory, but it was someone.
I remember that. And they'd ordered like a smart ball
and a couple things, and so you look at that and go, okay, like if you ever want to be convinced that something is organic in terms of it wasn't paid traffic, it wasn't influencer stuff. Look at tour players buying a training aid, and I mean that's all the proof that you should need.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a win for the good guys. They're two real good guys.
And Canadian guys.
Canadians, absolutely.
Better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, well that's number 3 in the books.
Yeah, that was a very
really
enjoyable
enjoyed
one.
it.
So
really
next guest is I mean the guest lineup is, I'm impressed. I gotta tell you. When you sent me the text the other day, I kind of thought like this is a good little list.
Yep. We're working on some really cool stuff in the pipeline. So we've got Mr. Aaron Dill, Mr. Sort of Vokey Wedge maestro coming on next week. So Aaron is someone I've known for about 11 years, and he's a young guy. So he started with Titleist 2005-ish or so, and so he's really been in it since he first got into the industry.
Yeah, which is rare. I mean, he was able to. I mean, he cut his teeth. It's not like he didn't earn it, but he started. I think he started in it probably younger than most. Yeah. So he's been at it for as long as you've said. But it's not like he's in his 60s or anything. No. He's still he's still a young guy.
That's right. Very much the future of the wedge business. Yeah. With Titleist. I mean, I know. I've spoke to Bob personally about what he thinks of Aaron and just loves him like a son. So the relationship they've got in that bond is very special, and I think that'll help with the transition when Bob in 2051 decides to retire and
decides he's had enough work.
He's just a machine. I mean, you just can't believe the work ethic of the man. It's crazy. Just in that trailer, just going out on the range, working with players, and it's really impressive to see.
That's what real passion looks like, I guess, isn't
exactly
it?
Yeah. So Aaron Dill coming on next week. Really excited, fresh off of the RSM Classic down in Sea Island. So it'll be great to have him.
It'll be great. Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Right. See you again next week.